Hello, just a quick video today with some art from another trip. My husband and I were in Sheffield yesterday watching one of our sons graduate, and now we're on the road to Glastonbury. So I've got my travel art bag out and I've brought with me the little book of pie chart swatches that I showed in my last video. I thought I'd use the colour themes to influence some watercolour washes that I'm doing in a sketchbook, ready for backgrounds for sketches. I've not tried this out before and I thought it would be something that I could do while I was travelling in the car. Just got distracted by some sheep. So this was the first colour theme that I chose. This is a new chart which I've painted since my last video, which I'll come back to in a minute. Then I painted a background based on these colours. I'm not really sure how these are going to work out as backgrounds, but I thought it was worth giving it a go. And I used the Perylene Violet and Yellow Ochre from this one. And back to this chart. I've never really liked phthalo green at all in its own right, but I thought, seeing as I'm getting used to using yellow ochre now, I should probably try and get over my dislike of phthalo green as well. So this chart is phthalo green or PG7, yellow ochre and permanent rose. And I use the green and permanent rose on these sketchbook pages. Together they make some lovely purpley shades. I think the idea of doing these is that when you start a sketch, you've already got something in place to give you something to work with and give you some more interesting layers. I was quite enjoying just daubing in the car and did one last one using yellow ochre and the phthalo green. I quite like this one and I use it later in the video with a sketch over the top of it. Once in Glastonbury, I go to Chalice Well, a place which a friend recommended I visit. There's a holy well here and there are lots of ancient myths surrounding it. It's set within a lovely garden and I thought I could come here and do some sketching while my husband was working in the area. This is the site of the well itself. But there are a number of separate little areas within the garden. And this next one here below the well is called the Lion's Head, and the pure Chalice Well spring water can be drunk here in small quantities. I had a sip from here and also filled up a water bottle, which I do some painting with later. The next little garden is my favourite, and it's called King Arthur's Court and Healing Pool. And the pool is one which you're encouraged to paddle in. I was lucky enough to have a time where I had King Arthur's Court and the pool to myself, and so I took a little paddle. It was a gorgeous environment and I decided to do a sketch here. The water has a red tinge to it and stains the stone because it's very rich in iron. The spring has never run dry and it kept the inhabitants of the town alive in the drought of the early 1920s. I sat on a bench and sketched here using one of the watercolour backgrounds which I'd done in the car. I included the lovely arched doorway and the entrance to the pool, and I did all of the sketching with a dark green Caran D'Ache Luminance pencil. I also added a few dashes of Tempera paint sticks and Faber-Castell gelatos to give a hint of sky and flowers. And this is the lowest pool in the gardens, called the Vesica Pool. The overlapping circle's shape is very symbolic and is repeated numerous times throughout the garden. I wander further through the garden and then find another little spot to sit and sketch. It's a very green area that I'm sitting, and I'm a little bit intimidated by all the green that I need to paint. There are lots of bright pops of colour from flowers though, and I decided to do another colour wheel first of all, using 3 quite bright primary colours. I've got Sennelier Yellow Light for the yellow, Quark Cobalt Teal for the turquoise, and Winsor & Newton Permanent Rose for the dark pink. And here it is filled in. Some of the greens I think are going to be perfect for this garden, and the yellows as well. This palette also has some lovely purples in it, which match up nicely with the purples in the garden. And the permanent rose is also the same colour as the roses. I use another of the watercolour backgrounds which I did in the car as a starting point. And then I splodge in different areas of the various greens. Once the paint has dried, I use an assortment of luminance coloured pencils, Neocolor 2 pastels, and Faber-Castell gelatos to add more details. It ended up as quite a busy sketch, but it was very good practice working on different textures, mostly within the same colour. I also quite liked having the watercolour wash that was on the paper first of all. In the foreground area where there's the lawn, I like that the pink shows through a little bit and adds just something a bit different to it. It's definitely something that I'll experiment with more in the future anyway. And in my earlier sketch too, all of the watercolour paint that's in the picture was what was applied before the actual sketch, before knowing what was going to be applied to it. So I think it adds a really nice element of randomness and interest to the picture. I'd be interested to hear if that's a technique that you use as well, and what materials or what kind of techniques you use for applying the background, or if there are specific colours that you like using. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching, and I'm sorry this is another of my slightly more rambly videos. I've been away a lot and my videos are reflecting that. So thanks again. Bye!